little doggies. Today we're going to be making cowboy candy. Okay, so while we get ready to cut up our jalapenos, I'm going to make the sauce for you. So the ingredients are 2 cups of apple cider vinegar. Now I'm making a half a batch, but I'm going to tell you the exact measurements for the recipe, and then I'll post those in my description. You're going to have 2 cups of granulated sugar and 2 cups of packed brown sugar. And then you're going to have a teaspoon of turmeric, a teaspoon of garlic powder, and a teaspoon of celery seed. Now the recipe also calls for a half of a teaspoon of cayenne. I think the jalapenos are hot enough for me, so I'm going to pass on that. But all you're going to do is just bring this up to a simmer. This delicious recipe, oh, it already smells amazing. And so you're going to bring this up to a simmer, and in the meantime, I'm going to cut up my washed jalapenos. And this recipe calls for 20 jalapeno peppers. So this is just kind of a fun thing to make. I actually am going to cut these into halves because these are kind of some big jalapenos. And if you see what I mean, I actually put in the seeds, the whole jalapeno. So if these have really hot seeds, this is going to be a kind of a hot cowboy candy. Now the vinegar and the sugar actually take some of that heat away, but this is just such a fun recipe. I love taking this at the holidays and serving it over some cream cheese and some crackers, and it's kind of festive. If you can find some red and green chips, if you can find some red and green tortilla chips, and then serve this over some cream cheese, it's gonna just look like a really cute festive dish. And honestly, I bring this almost every Christmas or Thanksgiving, and it gets eaten up within just, I'd say probably within 15 minutes, it's completely gone. Most people just really love it. So let me finish cutting all these jalapenos, and I'll show you the next step as soon as this comes up to a boil. Okay, I've got my sauce here coming up to a boil. I've taken off my gloves because I'm done cutting those jalapeno peppers. And all I'm going to do is add these peppers to my liquid carefully because I don't want any of these seeds coming into my face, and I also don't want this liquid splattering all over the place. You can see even a half of a recipe makes a lot of this cowboy candy. So now all I'm going to do is bring this back up to a boil, and I'm going to boil it for exactly 4 minutes. I'm actually going to time it as soon as it comes up to a boil. So my jalapenos and the sauce have started to boil. So I have already set my timer for 4 minutes, and I'm just going to let this just boil away. As soon as the timer goes off, I'm all set up to start putting them in my jars. Okay, that is really wild stuff. Okay, so my jalapeno mixture got to the 4-minute mark, so I'm gonna actually take it off my burner because this burner is electric and it just doesn't turn off real quick. Alrighty, so what I'm gonna do is just start off by getting some of these jalapenos and using a slotted spoon to put them in my jar. Just like so. And I think I'm actually going to get all of my jars over here. This isn't going to make too much, but I did get a selection of jars. I have some pints and some half pints. So I'm going to get some of the half pints too. So here are these little half pint jars. So I really just want probably one that I can take for Christmas or, you know, whatever holiday we celebrate near Christmas. And then I also want to have some of these smaller ones for myself. Now, I don't use a ton of this, but I do enjoy it, especially if I'm having like some chips, or sometimes I just have a craving and I put these on top of a salad. And you know what, probably the best thing I enjoy this for is when I'm done with the jalapenos, Then I go ahead and I use the sauce that's left over in the jar to marinate my chicken, and then I throw it on the grill, and that is amazing. You have this sweet and hot mixture that is just absolutely delicious. So I'm just going to get the rest of these little jalapenos and put them in here. There's not many left, but you want to get them out of the jar. I put a couple more in here. All right, and then all I'm going to do is pour the liquid over my jalapenos, like so. So we're going to fill up our jars to a 1/4 inch headspace, and that's just the space we're going to put on the top of the jar so that we have it sealed correctly. These are beautiful. I wish I could have you get the smell-o-vision here on YouTube, because this stuff is so good. Oh my goodness. It smells amazing. I love the smell of like spicy, sweet, vinegary. Definitely one of my favorites. So I am going to just debubble these real quick. Just make sure there's no bubbles in the bottom of the jars. And it looks like I could top these off with a little bit more liquid. Now this stuff is, when I say sticky, this stuff is sticky. I don't know, it kind of turns to something really sticky when you're, so you can't really use water to clean the rims. You're really gonna have to depend on using vinegar on the rims. I'm trying to just get a little bit more in the jars. It calls for a 1/4 inch headspace, and I do my very best to make sure to follow the canning directions the best that I possibly can, because like I said before, all this work, you definitely want to have your product seal. So this was the perfect amount. I'm very happy with this. So I am going to get some vinegar, and I'm going to put it on a paper towel. And I'm going to make sure that there's no sugar anywhere on these, on the top of these jars. And we'll join them with some bands. Got a couple already. All right, just finger tight, and we'll put them in the canner. So I'm gonna actually, once the canner gets up to a boil, I'm gonna boil those jars for 10 minutes, and then I'm gonna leave them in the canner for another 5 minutes, and then take them out to cool on the counter. So another thing I did today, just to make my life easier, is I went ahead and made my dinner for tonight. So I had lots of nice tomatoes and cucumbers and things out of the garden. So I'm making a salad, and I'm gonna be adding some tuna to it. So it's all made, I just have to throw it together, and it'll be a very easy dinner. Thanks for joining me. I appreciate you coming along and learning how to make cowboy candy. It's a lot of fun to eat, it's a lot of fun to make, and if you enjoy this content, please consider subscribing and give me a thumbs up. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.